While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Ashley, okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is today, September 16th, Facilities Advisory Committee. Starting a couple minutes late, but we're starting at 3:11 p.m. And write that down for the minutes. I guess we'll start with roll call.
Mark Layton.
Okay.
Rob Corson.
And I'm Julie Gilman, the Select Board Rep.
And Amanda Kelly, Vice Chair, taking over for Chris tonight, who could not be with us. And we're still hoping to get another member or two for the committee. Put that right up front. So I guess we will start with the agenda, meeting minutes. I have found the 6-3 minutes, and I can send those over to you guys tonight. Does anybody else have minutes or pending minutes coming?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I have pending coming.
Okay.
I have one's completed and the other one is almost complete.
Okay. Which one's completed?
The 2/3/22.
Okay. You can email that out to us for review for next time.
And I can remind you that if it goes 60 days, 3 months without approval, then they're automatically approved.
Ah, okay.
So
All right.
you
Then
still have to do them, and you still have to
you don't have to send it to us.
Yeah.
You just send it right into Chris. Perfect. And Mark, you only have one.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the longest, the furthest one.
Yeah, that year is coming up.
Yeah, and it's not a typo, unfortunately.
I think we have a video though. Do you have access to the video for that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 'Cause,
Should, yep.
If not, Bob can send it right to you. He's very good at that.
Okay,
But he
great,
did for
thanks.
mine, so.
So Amanda, which one's good? This
I have
one or the
6-3.
7/7?
I didn't know I had 7-7 to do, so I will do that. That's not a problem.
7, you're saying
Yep,
this.
I'll add it on. Yep, and I have the 6, it's actually 6-3, but yes, I
Yep,
have that.
6-3, okay.
Yep, I'll fix, that's just the wrong date there in the agenda. And how about for tonight? Does anyone want to volunteer?
I'll do it.
You'll do it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. All right, so the next item probably requires Dave,
What do you think, Dave? Dave?
who's not here.
Dave's not here.
So we probably just move past that for now, unless
Yeah, do you want
anybody
me
has
to-
been told anything.
Do you want me to go get him?
I haven't seen a
you think
copy
he's
of
here?
anything.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, the store's open, so.
Oh, okay, great. Sure. We can go check on Dave.
I thought he said he could attend, so yes, maybe he's just for me.
I thought he knew we were here.
Maybe had a
Yeah.
call or something.
We can always circle back. Look at you, Mark. Right on it.
If I don't do it this way,
I know, it's easier to
then
do
I'll add
live, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although on video, you can do it on a faster playback.
Oh, okay.
So keep that in mind if you do it.
Yeah.
If you can listen quickly. Here's Dave.
Thanks for roasting.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Because I guess we'll need him for the next one anyway. Hi. Oh, I could have got the table for you, sorry.
3:30.
Well, it almost was.
Almost? Okay, maybe that's where it came from.
Dave, just in case you needed it, what you sent to them is on the computer.
Yeah, can you, while you're here, can you log this in,
First on the agenda, right?
please?
No, it's.
don't mind?
No, it's next though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Nice and good. Don't- yeah.
And what were you saying was on here?
I have on here the thing. That
Oh, that's not this. Oh, okay.
What did he?
Oh, okay.
Sent you the public.
You guys haven't seen it yet.
I was just gonna
safety
use my
complex
laptop.
things.
What was that, Julie?
Rob was asking which things he sent us.
You sent something?
I thought he did. Yeah, Wednesday.
Yep. Wednesday at 12:15. You want me to forward it to you?
Yeah, there it is.
Now I had to search for Dave.
That was good because it was.
AC on it?
Yep.
Feels like it. Oh, it doesn't need to be on it. The AC.
All right, so we are on to the facilities condition assessment updates on proposals. Dave, if you have any.
I don't have it in front of me. The deadline hasn't. The deadline's soon, I think.
Okay.
It hasn't come. I know I did get a call from a company that had a question, I think yesterday. And I answered it because I thought it was in the body of the proposal, because they were a little confused by the thing about saying PeopleSoft, like compatible or easily transported or whatever into, and then in parentheses it said MS Excel. Like, that's an acceptable format to give it. Mm-hmm. And he was asking if MS Excel could be used. I thought, I was like, well, that looks like it, right?
Yeah.
That looks like yes. So I answered yes to him. And that was it. So I think, I don't have the proposal in front of me, but the deadline's coming soon.
Okay. All right. Maybe this was a little early then. Have you received many, or you don't?
Oh, no.
No.
I never receive any, either the day before it's due, I'll see some.
Oh, okay.
But usually the bulk of them are on the day they're due.
Oh.
And if I don't see them on the day they're due, it's like the day before. I've never seen them like 2 weeks ahead of time.
Okay, perfect. Then we won't lose any hope.
Yeah, and I understand, at least the guy who called me their firm intends to submit a proposal, so.
Perfect.
I know I can pretty much guarantee at least one's coming.
All right.
And I did send them to everyone that sent in one before. So hopefully we'll get, responses back from them.
Okay. Anyone else have any comment or questions on that? No. All right, then Dave, if you don't mind, we can talk about the latest updates on the PSC.
Yeah, as I said, I gave you a short memorandum along with this, and I gave you this information. And we had talked about the new police station, fire substation at probably the last couple FAC meetings. I don't remember any votes getting taken, but you were comfortable with that. The select board approached it. I didn't hear any, you seemed comfortable with that approach. But then the remaining question was kind of 20 Court Street, what to do with 20 Court Street. Renovation or raise and build new. I met with the town manager, select board chair, budget review committee chair, the finance director, and the assistant town manager, and myself. And we sat down to talk about, kind of holistically about budget and so forth, and warrant articles and, priorities and what can be funded, what can't be. It was decided at that meeting to go forward with a warrant article for $15,950,000, which represents The low end of, there's a scale given on the estimates, low and high, which represents the low end plus escalation, plus net zero approach, plus the additional underground storage of the vehicles. So if we're able to get the contract for the lower end of the estimate, then we can do all the additions, the add-ons, and have a net zero ready building as well. So that's what they had planned to move forward with. Regarding 20 Court Street, which kind of had the most remaining questions, it was proposed that we put the warrant article in front of voters, because we're not going to put, it wasn't feasible to move ahead with one big warrant article that would cover both. And the timing is such as you have to build that, move the new PD over there, fire some personnel and some equipment over to the substation before you do anything with 20 Court Street anyway, and that could be, likely a couple years from now. So they decided to go forward with 6 Continental, and if it passes, build that, and then let the fire department occupy that additional space for some period of time, kind of a live-in period, to understand that space and how it could work or not work operationally, and then from having utilized that space will inform the decision of renovation or raise. The existing building is 8,700 square feet or a little over, whereas the new building was 17,100 square feet, which is a lot less big building, but yet with much more efficiencies for their, for modern operations. But that's what they decided to move forward. I put that in my memo and just wanted to update the FAC and get any thoughts or comments on that.
From a timing standpoint, I don't think, because you're not pulling the money, but you're getting town approval for a total project. See, this is the difference. I understand the financial part of it, but I think that's you won't pull that money, you won't use that money, you can go for the bond and you still won't use it for 5 years or whatever until you start that project, right?
Cool. You mean 20 Court? Are you talking about 20 Court?
Right.
Okay.
I don't think they're getting any money for that.
No, we're not asking for any money for 20 Court.
I understand that, but it's saying per our recommendation last time, I think we asked for really that we thought it would be to package it as one warrant and keep the entire thing together, and then have it go forward as a, 30 million or whatever it was project for, as the base, and then ultimately, from a finance standpoint, they're only pulling money for the first part of the project. They're not pulling money for the second part of the project. But from a town approval standpoint, you have approval for a total, for all the things that are associated with public safety, which has to do with both police and fire, and as a total police and total fire, versus a partial project, which leaves, again, a building that is 1979 with the same deficiencies and everything else for the community from 1979. So I guess I'm...
I think you're just the town's kicking the problem down the road.
Exactly, that's what I see.
Yeah, but I'm not aware. There was nothing in the CIP. I never heard anything. What I heard with the fire department, and the PD was too small and they were too cramped in that space together. I never really heard any structural or major issues with the existing building at 20 Court Street. It was about a substation and so forth. So when we looked at it, I don't know, I don't think it's fair to say this isn't a whole project.
So I don't want to interrupt, but at the presentation that the chief made at the town hall, which I attended, he talked about the size of the bays, the difficulty it was, the special to order for a truck that would fit within the existing facility, the idea that the rooms, the spaces weren't set up, that you didn't have parity if you want to have male and female. You don't have the idea of being able to have quarters for both genders. or even beyond that. So I think that's not exactly what I heard as the presentation from the fire department when it came down to 20 Court Street and its deficiencies.
No, 20 Court Street does have deficiencies, but I'm saying before this project, it was never, it was highlighted by, some of these, but in talking with the chief, since then, the bays, because we looked at okay, because what's really, the issue, but he said he could transfer that piece of equipment over to the new substation, which will have adequate clearance. So that, because it was one piece of equipment with one bay over there was really the main issue. So now he's got the ability to move equipment out of that.
That's his main piece of equipment. That's his ladder truck.
Yeah. But that's what he's telling me. Well, why, he said that operationally, I don't believe it really necessarily.
So the report, again, I'm going to go back to operations because that's where
and I'm not probably too averse.
So
we probably have to have the fire chief there.
Part of the justification and everything else for the substation was that they wanted to have coverage for the west side of town, which was primarily ambulance coverage and coverage for the 101 coverage. So the issue would be is now you're taking your main piece of gear, your downtown area, the buildings in the downtown, which is your greatest risk of danger. Is it not on?
Then maybe he'll keep it here. If that's the case, maybe he'll keep it here because it does work.
I guess
it does work. It has worked for years.
So going back to the original premise, which is that from at least at this standpoint I heard last time was that it would be great for the community to see the total project and for them to understand that it's not just building a new police station and a substation out on Continental Drive, but it's in fact a police, and this is phase one of a larger commitment to public safety in the community.
Well, we've been presenting that all along. That's the way it's been presented.
Yeah.
I think the difference is it's one warrant article or it's two, and the timing. I think that's all really what the difference is. I've never not. It's always been presented as.
I don't think it's presented that way in the warrant currently in the way
there is no warrant.
No, I'm saying not the warrant, but the CIP that's out there is that this is not presented as a phase one of a multi-phase project.
Well, yeah. They are. Yeah.
So
okay. All right. He had just wrote that to revise it, like the most recent one. Have you read the most recent one? Yeah. Okay.
So I guess that's my thought. I'm not sure.
We can always modify that and make that. But it is phase one and phase two, but they are two separate, distinct projects. Really, because we don't know, and the select board really wanted information from the community because we were unable to get it. We had public forums, we put word out there. I don't know whether it was just a lack of interest from folks. We didn't really get much input on this, and we will through through the vote. And we'll keep trying to do community outreach and so forth and get people up to speed on what's going on and what they're voting on and what may come in the future. So we'll continue to try to do that. But the select board wasn't comfortable in making a decision, didn't feel like it was ripe for a decision on 20 Court Street. If you feel differently, that's fine. But they felt that we didn't have a lot of public input. I didn't get any public on saying renovate or build new or utilize the existing space. There really hasn't been a lot of input on that. So in order to but there is an immediate problem over at the public safety complex. I think most people agree to that. So this solves a lot of that. This project.
So Dave, quick question then, if this goes forward, police moves out, what will happen to the space that police is occupying now?
See, that's kind of the point. What they recommended is understand the fire can use it for those things that they want to address, different genders and so forth. Like live in the space to figure out, okay, operationally, because they don't really understand that now, and the building's not imminent of structural damage or something like that. So give it some sort of live-in period to understand how that space could be best utilized, and then maybe it comes out that, hey, we could renovate.
Well, I understand that. I understand that part, but what work will need to happen for that to happen? If police vacates, fire's just not going to be able to move in, are they? Is there going to be is there going to have to be some sort of small renovation for the fire to be able to use it? I mean, is there like, what's going to happen to the,
Yeah, that's going to be a question for the fire chief. I mean, tentatively, he was talking about possibly moving his offices over there because it's not like that can be the cold zone, and administration definitely doesn't need to be as close to the
Right.
apparatus as possible. So just stuff like that, but I don't think any decisions have been.
well, I mean, my point is that should there be something that's included in this project I mean, maybe it's not enough money that, I'm just thinking that they're going to be now asking the town to say, can we spend $50,000 on doing something over there so that we can use it, you know what I mean? Whether it's adding a door or, I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but what's happening to the, what is it, dispatch, what do they call that's there now? Is that being moved to the new building?
Yes, that would be the new building. It's anticipated that there would be dispatch at the new facility and there would be 2 dispatch controls and a tower at that location.
What would be at where it is now in the building?
That's a good question.
So, I mean, to me, that's where, I mean, I understand you want to live with it. I agree more with
That
Bob.
would be a decision for the chief to make operationally. I don't have those answers.
No, and I'm raising these, and I'm not expecting, I guess, to me, it's about what is the, in order for this live-in period that you're talking about, is there going to be a request for money to be spent on that building to make it?
Not to my understanding.
Then there's just going to be a lot of spaces that are just going to be left unusable.
Potentially. I don't see this as a long time frame
Okay.
till you do something. I don't see it that way.
But we just talked about it wouldn't be happening for another 3 to 5 years.
Well, yeah, because it couldn't happen anyway, even if you put it in as one warrant article. Like,
Yeah, no, I understand the
You know,
construction
it's-
part of it, but what I'm saying is that it's that when police moves out, I mean, are you planning to go right afterwards, right when this building goes, if, say this gets approved this year, construction starts in '24, when is that next? I mean, are you thinking, or is fire thinking that they're going to want to have another warrant article or right then at that point to?
no, I believe there was the way it was recommended was that there's this live-in period. What that is defined as, that's beyond, I didn't.
Yeah, I guess I'm
relaying what the path forward was decided, and I didn't get an exact 3 months, 5 months, a year. But I didn't get it as 5 years. I didn't get it as, I get it as pretty soon, like just to understand the space that they have, and if they could, and I don't believe there's not going to be, because they could stay exactly how they are, because the reality is if they get a substation, they're actually relieving a lot of the space needs that they have now there and move over.
But Dave, if they stay, but if they do that, then they're not doing the live-in period. I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
no, they are. They're still staying there.
No, but they're staying in exactly the same spot. So I guess my point is that they're in order for this building to be utilized in this live-in period, they're going to be wanting to do something to it. There's just, when police gets up and leaves.
Where I was going with it, I know where I was going with it, is something simple like DPW can, because we had talked about putting a wall, because right now, the administration, the fire administration, the police administration are right next to each other, but you can't access them. You have to go downstairs because it's security. You have to go through the secure location to access police. But there's a common wall up there. Cutting a hole in a wall and putting a door in is something that can be handled within existing budgets and will not need any type of warrant article.
I think that's the problem, though, that I hear Mark brought up from what I heard, is it seems like existing budgets are pretty strained as they are, and like even if it's only $50,000, that's really small to plan. Again, a random number, really small to plan into a $15 million warrant, but really intense on a $100,000 a year budget that DPW has for everything that they do. So I would hate to see 50% of DPW's budget to work on renewal get used on moving this wall and cutting a door, right? So I think what Mark was trying to say was, can some money be added in or earmarked in the larger warrant to cover any small updates to the existing building that fire might need, so it doesn't come out of somebody's existing budget.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking 50,000 or anywhere near it. I was
Even
thinking
if it's
100,
10.
You know, I was thinking hundreds of dollars.
I was
It's hard to do anything for hundreds.
You know,
I was throwing numbers out there.
A day of Tom's work. But to answer your question, that's
But even if it's
that's the
$5,000,
committee's
that's-
recommendation, then
Yeah.
I'd be happy to take that recommendation
Yeah.
forward.
I think that's an
You know,
important-
so I don't know the answer to that because I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't decide on that
Yeah.
number. I didn't. And I'm not
But it'd
going
be good to
and I
find
don't
a
have any
number.
authority to say, yeah, let's add
Yep.
50,000. But I'll take that as a recommendation. Whatever the facility
Yeah.
committee wants to recommend, I'll take back and present it to those that make those decisions.
Again, I'm going to come back to what part of our goal is to create transparency. And so part of my thing is that it's up to the voters at some point, but it's just making sure that the voters understand what they're voting for and that they have all the information to make the decision. And I think that what we're trying to do is sit there and say, and I'll give a quick example, is we bought a building on Hampton Road last year for little over $1 million. And now this year, there's a CIP for $750,000 for renovations, right?
Yeah.
There is.
I would love to have known that we were going to spend $750,000 on the building when we made the recommendation.
We did. We did.
No, we didn't. We didn't hear $750,000 on renovating. One of the things we actually talked about was that you really ultimately you're buying the land and the idea of reinvesting in that building, which is not code compliant. It's not, you can't get through the doorways. It's not ADA accessible. That ultimately for $750,000, which is almost the same value you paid for it, you're putting more money into it, just like Court Street. So it's like, all I'm saying is we should be showing, if the CIP is a multi-year CIP, at a minimum, on that CIP, to me, should be a fire station at 20 Court Street, and like many of the other CIPs, it's a dollar value, or in the interim, in 2024, there's a CIP for $1 million to do renovations or whatever to the existing fire station, so that you see a sequential investment and money spent on a facility.
Well, we can easily put that in the CIP. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you whether they're going to renovate or raise. It's that. So I don't know how you put a dollar value to it.
We do it
could
every year.
Yeah, but we've been pushing a lot of that's TBD. Like you put in TBD because you can't, you don't tell voters 5 million and then it comes back at 10, or you tell them 5 million, it comes back at 1. I mean, it changes so dramatically.
So Rob, on the transparency part of it, should we come up with a recommendation as a committee to the town to say, as far as we feel like that they should be more transparent in the CIP warrant article? I mean, in the
Yes,
warrant
I would
article.
agree, yes. So
Because I zoned in on what is going to be done short term, but I think it's more of the bigger point about making sure that it's communicated that whether this is phase 1 of a larger idea, or it's at least communicated that we're doing this, but we are planning a follow-up project with the scope.
Potentially.
But yeah, potentially there's going to be something
either way,
done.
that was a
There's going to be
follow-up
something done with 20 Court Street. You can't say there's a potential project. There has to be a project there.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be. You can't just live with this status quo.
But then it's up to people that not in this room that are going to make those decisions.
This decision is
I
already
don't
made.
know if someone's going to put it on the warrant in the future or not. I would hope so.
Okay,
But
all
I
right.
don't know that.
But
it's
the
all
whole thing, Dave, that we've been
speculation.
talking
And
about-
when you put a second project on there, the voters get a chance. I don't understand this, saying
No.
somehow there's a lack of transparency, because the voters are voting on the 750. It's not like it got added and now the voters have to pay for it. You have a choice on it.
Well, so we're spinning off on something there. What I'm saying is that I think that as a committee, if we can come up with a recommendation, and whether you've already doing it, that's fine. But I think there should be communicated that this is you're saying a standalone project, but there's no way that the fire department is going to live with 20 Court Street as it is right now with the
20
police out.
Right.
They're just not going to.
And that's
I hear
been,
you.
And this is the
that's
whole
been
thing that we've
clear
been talking about for a year and a half, is that that's not compliant.
If anyone's been paying attention to that, I hope that's pretty darn clear.
But
No one's been
the problem is that
hiding
we have
fact.
that the people are not paying attention, Dave. I mean, they're not going to until they go to the warrant article. So
Right, I
that's
think
the
you need-
point,
I think
is that
I
we're
hear what
talking
you're
about.
saying. Yeah.
Is that
But then what do you tell them? I would like to see the wording. I'm not
Well-
opposed to it, but it seems like, it's like.
Give us a
it's
chance to come up with it.
You're
Yep.
creating this hypothetical for the future that I don't know.
I'm not creating anything
Well-
hypothetical. I think it just needs to be communicated that this is the intent, is that there's, if we go forward with this, that there's something going to happen at 24th Street.
As a voter,
Yeah, that's
would you
usually
be comfortable with something where we know the money we need for the new station out on Continental as part one of a two-phase project, but you don't know what the money is for the second one? But is it sufficient to say there'll be more work, basically?
Yep.
I mean, I just think that for this to be successful, I think it has to be clear, and if maybe the plan is maybe already in place, is that this is not the only thing that is going to be happening related to fire and police, right? And I know this is what's been communicated, Dave, I get that, but the 6 people that have watched it are maybe on board with it, but when it starts to go to the warrant article next March is when the stuff will hit the fan, right? I mean,
It's already definitely
yeah,
not
I
clear
don't
on
know.
the people
I
that
don't
are
know.
commenting on.
I mean, we don't
I don't know. I don't get it, but that's fine.
Fine, I guess
I'll hear, I guess.
That's fine if you don't
Get
get
a
it. but-
draft warrant, because I don't write the warrant article. I mean, I don't agree on the warrant article. It's the select board who determines what the language of the warrant article is. So if you have any suggestions to that effect,
And I think it's
we
more
can
than just
definitely
what's in the
pass it.
warrant article. I think it's how this gets communicated. I mean, we had always talked about how this is going to be, leading up to the March vote, how this can be communicated better with the community, right? As far as continuing the process that you've had to date, continuing that, and so that people understand when it comes to March, why they're voting for $15 million.
Oh, absolutely.
So during that process, it should still be talked about that this is, whether it's part one of a bigger idea, that it's
Absolutely.
not just not focus on that it's this. So to me, it's the whole
Yes.
process.
We agreed in that meeting that we're going to create a fact sheet like we've done in the past for warrant articles, explaining, kind of giving more information, because you can't write a warrant article to explain everything. I mean, it's just, it can't be a 3-page warrant article. It needs to be a paragraph.
We weren't asking for that.
So there's a fact sheet that's going. To the extent people want to get those fact sheets and absorb them and read them, that information will be in there, I will guarantee.
And I'll
Julie, from your side of things, from the select board side, what is the, I guess what I'm hearing is that fundamentally, I don't see that there's a lot of support for doing something for the fire 20 Court Street building in either the short-term, middle-term, or long-term. That's what I hear.
I would say it's, having the living period, which I'm hearing that you all have a problem with that. It's, the way it isn't going to work. We don't want to take necessary money away from Public Works and the other buildings that they have to do jobs on. I guess what I'm looking at is like a couple of different recommendations that are meaning the same thing about the transparency, and that we do want this to be connected to whatever happens at 20 Court Street, but we don't have that solution yet, because it may be that's still not enough room, or it may be that it's more than they
I
need.
thought that's what the feasibility and the studies that we just did was supposed to do, is to test out the 2 sites, to look at the viability of the sites as far as the 20 Court Street and Continental Drive. I guess I'm confused about where we are in the process, and I see that we've got a new police station and a substation, and not a commitment at all to doing anything. We've got a building that was built in 1979. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't meet current building codes, it doesn't meet current energy codes, it doesn't meet any current accessibility codes, it doesn't meet the general requirements of a facility of 2022. So the idea that we're not going to do anything to the building, to me, is disingenuous.
And Rob, I think if the town doesn't continue to have that discussion to say that we are going to do something, but the scope to be determined, and the live-in period, I understand that. I think it's the timeline, this live-in period is going to be years, right? And so at some point, the town will have to invest money into 20 Court Street to do this live-in period. And so is that 5,000? Is that Public Works, or is that, who knows? But I think it needs to be part of this discussion that when we go into, and Dave, you may be already planning to do this, which is great. So we're regurgitating something that you're already planning to do. But it's that this whole discussion is that we have an issue with the current public safety complex. The first fix is to create this at 6 Continental. We have to do something at 20 Court. We want to take more time to figure that out, but we know we have to do something there. I just think it has to be part of the story that gets told, and that it's not just, hey, we're just going to focus on this and we'll, nothing at 20 Court. So
I think that in wording the warrant article as we've always been talking about this as the public safety complex. So this is the public safety complex. Part 1 is the police and substation, and then we can talk about Part 2, which is whatever happens at 20 Court Street, but we haven't gone out and gotten the solution yet.
I think we should have the solution, though. My problem is that we paid for the study to give us the solution, and I don't think we should have to go through a live-in period. I think there's been enough work, or should have been enough work done, that answer comes out of this study. And so, if we need to stop with creating, the next steps of the building plans and finish with the answer to that, I really would be very confused if we came out of this, didn't have an answer to that, and we ever needed another study to determine what we're going to do with the building.
It did come out. It did come out in the study. The study
Which one, Raise or?
No, the study went 2 pathways and gave them as options. That's pretty common to say, okay, now it's a policy decision on the community to make if we want a brand new facility with, modern everything, or do we want to, it's kind of a monetary discussion, maybe at the BRC and so forth in the select board. So they've provided the 2 options that they feel are the best way path forward. We looked at multiple different options of, tearing down part of it and so forth, and those all been, boiled down to these 2 options left on Court Street.
Right, and I think that we should be able to come up with, or maybe we need to go back to the select board and discuss it more. Or I think the answer needs to be decided on out of this whole process. I don't think we can, this isn't exactly addressed to you, Dave, but more to Julie. Like, I feel really uncomfortable with going 98% of the way and still having the question be raise or renovate. I think we should be able to we should have had enough information to figure that out, and then kind of have an idea of what phase 2 is going to be.
Are those 2 options, Dave, in here?
We could do that and put a warrant article, and those aren't like, they can be mutually, they don't, like, we could continue to work on this decision of renovation and, or raise. The problem with a town is you get 1 shot a year, and it's very timey. We're not in a city where you can just, okay, when we're ready, we'll go. So the timing is such that you're kind of forced into this, budget review, select board warrant by, and vote. But we can certainly continue that discussion and make a decision on that. I mean, or ask that.
This is going to have to go through the budget review committee also, discussing the CIP. So they're all going to have an opinion. And we've also been having the discussion about what to do with the ARPA funding that's still available to us through 2024, I think.
The ARPA funds?
Yeah. We have about 750,000. So, I don't know, to make it a livable building for I would say short term myself, but.
Yeah, and that's part of the discussion. I think for me, it's, is really the commitment to the idea that I look at it from a facilities standpoint. Mm-hmm. It's a building that was built in 1979. I'll keep repeating it, and that ultimately that they have a lifespan. They don't last forever. especially when it was built in that time period, and that we talk about the idea of sustainability, we talk about all these other energy, we talk about all these items, but when it comes down to committing to it, to truly committing to those concepts, we're basically saying, no, we're going to stop because we don't want to spend an extra $10,000, $50,000, $1 million, or whatever it is. And I guess
So we have a number of 4 million for renovating 20 Court Street, if I'm reading this correctly.
At $3,977,478.
Yeah. So then the question is, do we put that on the same warrant article or add it into the?
I don't think, we did not recommend renovation. We actually recommended that the building be raised and you build a new facility. And so.
Yeah, you may want to, plus in light of our conversations recently with the fire department and drilling down and asking more questions with LBA, we may want to go back and examine that a little more, because at first it was, the operations really didn't fit, operationally. And there's mechanical issues, and then there's building envelope issues. But they've solved these through renovation, through add-ons. And you can see it if you go in here, all the add-ons to get that building almost to, it's not new, but it addresses all those kind of major concerns. It's not 3.9 million,
No,
it
it's
gets
not.
up into, well, yeah, but it gets up to 8. Then the question becomes, and it's not me who decides, do you spend 8 on basically a new building, or do you spend, 12 on a new building, or something like that? What's the difference? The brick facade stays, So then you can get into that nitty-gritty. I don't know if we've ever had that discussion at that level here.
No,
With the new information.
we actually talked about it last time. That's part of what was the gap. We didn't understand what the level of renovation that was being considered was.
Correct.
To what extent is it, like we said, is it just moving a couple of walls, or is it, like you said, are you basically gutting the place and then redoing it and making it to at least most of the systems being contemporary with 2022?
Yeah, now you have all that information right here in this packet that I just sent you. So you really, I would say absorb it and potentially, I'm not saying you come to a different conclusion, but we have more information than we did before to add value to that discussion of renovation versus raise and build new.
Dave, is that page 11?
Yeah,
The pages aren't marked
is.
in mine
Okay.
on my printout sheet.
that's the summary for the
Okay.
renovation option. So Dave, what is left with the Valley Brensinger with their contract?
There isn't.
So they've completed their scope.
They've completed their scope, they've determined, they've done everything we've asked them for in the scope of work.
So in order to, if we ask that, our recommendation is to finalize and to pick an option, that would be an additional scope, additional service with them? Or is that
No,
is
I
that
think
more?
that's a policy decision that they want us to make, not them to make.
Yeah, but is there some?
They've said they both work.
I know that, but if there's some back and forth about, like what you were talking about, if there's these add-ons and then doing this life cycle analysis and stuff, you answer the question is that their scope is complete. There's no more.
Their scope is complete, they've
Okay,
given us all
thanks.
the information that, maybe we need more information, specific information to make a decision, but
Yeah. I don't know if you guys, if we want to make a recommendation or if you want, I like the idea of recommending to the town that they not put the decision further down on the 20 Court Street, but that they should come up with a solution. And I don't know, it needs to be tied to the warrant article. I just feel like that it should be, further work should be done, because otherwise 2 years from now, there's another study that's going to come out.
So saying something like we've done the work in 2022 dollars of looking at the solution for renovation versus raise and build new. So that part 2 of this project is going to come, but it's not costed out yet.
So Julie, on your end, what do you think it would take for the town to make a decision whether it's renovation or replacement? What do you think there's a live-in period that needs to happen in order to make that decision?
I actually, when Dave first mentioned it to me, I thought so.
Okay.
And partly because of if we go through eventually it's going to be raised. I know that. But maybe that's a dollar figure that we can bring to a later town meeting, because, this one's 15 something for just the new station. And then if we're going to add on another 3 million now and not, we haven't really, well, I don't know. I'm talking myself in circles.
The fire department says that it's okay, that they meets their program, right? And say it's 5 million, not 4 million, whatever it is.
Yep.
I mean, why not just hold them accountable for that and just say, and go and try to say that this is what the town, this is what we would want to do. And I'm not saying you do that in the warrant article, that you add the 5 million. I mean, that maybe Rob, you'd like to do that, but I mean, at least you can say that the town would like to do a renovation of this building, and the estimated cost is 5 million. But the first part is the new building that you're asking for money, but at least you're communicating to the town that the next step is a renovation of 20 Court. Not maybe a replacement, maybe a renovation, but it's...
Yeah.
And things can change in 2 years, right? You can just say that at this point, we think that the best approach is a renovation. I think personally, in my opinion, that would go over better with people voting for it, saying that, okay, so there is a next step and they have an idea. It's,
Yeah.
Well, I think it kind of goes to what we were talking about at the beginning of, like, when there's a really open end, it's scarier and people are going to fill in the gaps. So rather than leaving a big gap for all the rumors to fill in, have an answer.
No, and we paid for, we had a study done, right? And I think that's part of that. The next thing is that people want to know that there's a product, something came out of the study, right? And something that, so the thing that did come out was the exploration of the 2 sites, which is what the intent was. You looked at the programming, you looked at the alterations, you looked at the both renovation and additions, and there was a result. And I think that result is important to at least some people, and I think that's lets people know that the money we spent to do that resulted in something, and it helped to make decisions about how we move forward.
And I think it's in our letter that we had, I don't know when that was, that when Peter was on the board, but we talked about this, to ask to look at a lower cost solution, right? He had actually come up with some ideas, because at that time, I think it was a tear down part of it and rebuild or something. So I mean, I think that the renovation is in line with what we were asking the town to really think about. And I mean, I don't know enough about their program and if it checks the boxes or not, but but I guess, I mean, as far as a committee, I mean, I would like to support some sort of recommendation that we recommend to the town that they make a decision on what to do with 20 Court. In the next, I don't know, in a short time period. I don't know how to word this motion or whatever it's going to be, but
do you want to? It'll end up being a letter. Do you want to? I think we had a couple. I was taking notes on the things that we might want to recommend. So rather than trying to come up with 4 separate motions right now, could we write a letter and then vote on the letter? Yeah,
it's up to you. I mean, I was just thinking it would just be like a statement that we would, but maybe a letter's a better idea.
I would actually copy that to the Budget Recommendation Committee, not just send it to the Board of Selectmen.
Sure, yep.
Just to be clear on, you said, I don't know if it checks all the boxes. It does check all the boxes.
Okay.
Because just so you're aware that, on this new document that we gave you that admittedly I haven't had, I just gave you a couple days ago, has all that information. They worked, I mean, if you look at the renovation plan, you'll see, addition, circulation, existing. The fire department is where the red will be. It shows what walls will be taken down. And this was worked in, with La Valley and the, fire department. And they believe that this meets the program and operational needs as identified in the studies that were done by LBA and MRI.
That's perfect. That's not in there, but I think that's perfect. If the fire department, you have that.
Well,
right there, that one.
I was going to ask on that, just for clarification. So when it says existing and it's white, does that, and I'm sorry, but does that mean that it's existing fire department and it stays in use as is written in the label? So like on page, I know you don't have page numbers, but it's 15 and it's that one. So all those white rooms up at the top of the L there, it says existing bunk. Does that mean it's an existing fire department bunk, and then the red ones are becoming fire department?
No, where?
Yeah.
The one that's on the board.
Oh, yes, no.
So they
White?
white is currently fire department, and red is becoming fire department?
No, not necessarily. It's all going to be fire department.
Well, right, but I want to know
what red is renovated space. That space is new renovated space, so it's an existing space that will be repurposed into something else. It
Okay.
doesn't exist as it's shown in red on those plans.
Oh, it doesn't
The
exist
whites
as the label.
today.
Gotcha.
No, in reality, like if you look at the top left, okay,
Yeah.
the top left of that document right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
You're on the second floor, right?
Yeah.
None of that is set up like that. The walls are different because that's the police administration. So anything in red is going to be newly renovated space. The white, like the bunks, exists now and they aren't being
And
touched
stays.
because they serve the operational purpose
Okay.
now.
A quick observation of something I see just in that little plan, right? What do you see that connects the two different sections of the building?
Stairs.
No elevator.
No, there is.
No, that's,
There's an elevator.
Yeah, but how do you, I guess,
No, that goes to the multiple floors.
those
my understanding.
Those two floors are separated by about 5 feet. So to get from one section to the building to the other section of the building, you have to go down a set of stairs.
Correct.
So it's not compliant. So
You'd have to have a ramp.
when I look at these things, is that from an accessibility standpoint, the corridor isn't wide enough to meet accessibility So this is where, when you go back and look at these things, and I look at this as a professional, and I say, what's the viability that this feasibility study actually meets what we're talking about from, if you do the renovation, it has to meet current code.
Yeah, there is no requirement, there's no requirement to make the southern part of the site accessible because,
Sorry.
in fairness, if you are a firefighter, you have to have certain physical abilities. And it's not public area where that is accessing. That's what, I had that discussion, that's what I was told.
Sure, so the example would be.
So it's not, this is not something that's out of code, like it seemed like you implied.
For the firefighters and stuff like that, the reality is that in this day and age, we don't know what ultimately is going to be, what
But
disabilities
that's in
are
code, that meets code, that plan,
in 2022,
right now, it meets code.
okay?
You're telling me, you're implying it doesn't, but I was told it does, so.
Well, whether it's contested or something like this, but those would be some of the things that I would look at as saying is that somebody would have to demonstrate to me that if I was a lieutenant, and I happen to have a disability. I'm not somebody that goes out onto the fire, but I have a different position within the organization. I'm a trainer. I have a different position within the organization. I can't get to that other side of the building because of my disability. And it doesn't mean that the disability is only for the people who are fighting fires. It could be for somebody else that's part of the system. So I understand
That's a good point. I mean, we can always look at the data entry office
Kitchen
for a
dining.
ramp. We
Yeah.
could always look at the data entry office for a ramp. I mean, this is just, there's ways to solve it. I don't know if it's a quick to say that, oh, okay, since there's stairs here, we have to tear down the whole place and rebuild it.
No, I don't think you have to do that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that it ultimately, it's thinking about all of those things, and part of that is in fact, and I've been challenged by owners, is that sometimes you have to challenge the design team to say, what about something else? And I don't think that, I'm
There's
fair
been
to
a
the
lot
fire
of
chiefs and stuff like
challenges
that.
back and forth.
They don't know what some of these other things that come up, right? They're not familiar with it, and they would be looking to La Valley to
Straighten them out.
advise them.
So I guess what are you saying? Is there a recommendation out of that? Because I'll take it.
The recommendation
Feels
to me is when
unfinished?
I look at the renovations, it doesn't appear to be enough renovation to truly make it compliant with 2022 or 2026 or 2027.
Well, you point out one, that's a small, minor, I mean, I'm not saying accessibility is minor, I'm saying that can be, because these are concept design plans. These are not final design, and that's something, is there anything like major that, point out that, would affect the entire, because a lot of that can be overcome in final design.
So Rob, is it important enough right now that we ask Dave to follow up with
Yeah.
the Valley on this?
I would. I've tried to do is at this point in time, for a lot of these projects, is giving people enough information early on so that they make the right decisions
Sure.
at the beginning, versus waiting till you get to the next phase and they, oh, by the way, you know what, we forgot that, geez, we have to really do more to it. So, yes, I thank you.
Welcome to my world, everything changes.
But on the owner
that all the time.
But on the owner side, Rob, I mean, I understand what you're saying because it's a concept, but then as you get into design, then these things get, like you said, well, we didn't understand, it gets triggered now or whatever it is. And so where that renovation looked pretty enticing, it's now much more closer.
And this probably isn't, this is probably not, $1 million difference. This is probably, minor, but it's just being aware
You
that
just looked
when
at
we.
that quickly in the middle of the meeting, that wasn't even from studying the documents at home.
Correct.
That was just from a glance.
it's-
Yeah.
Okay, so no one actually had a chance to review them yet? I sent them earlier
Not
this
in
week.
detail. I mean, I had questions of just even what the colors meant, so.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I guess that's why I sent them.
Yeah.
And then, it seems like your timeline might be quicker than what I relayed earlier, what was decided in that meeting, how to move forward about renovation of thing, but we have this document, you can schedule it for a future meeting to dive into it and so forth.
Yeah.
And,
Do you want to talk, you said you made some notes, Amanda, do you want to talk about that now? Or do
Yeah.
you want to just circulate and we can comment? Or?
Yeah, why don't we talk about it? So they're very messy, but we talked about maybe making some recommendations to Select Board / BRC copied on the letter about the wording of the warrant article with the Phase 1, Phase 2, decision on renovation versus raise, and make them connected as one project. Make it known that there's a second half of the project. Live-in period, possibly having some money attached to it as part of the main project. And then I wrote down mechanical envelope and operational issues have been addressed, and I think we just needed to come back to that and make sure if we had any recommendations on whether we felt like they were addressed or not. Because I feel like that has shifted a couple of times. There were more issues with the building, and now those issues have been resolved in this document, and we need to kind of look at that more and see if we have any other recommendations.
maybe it might be beneficial to be more specific than that statement about kind of general, like the wording
This is not
of
the letter.
warrant.
This is not the letter.
No,
This is-
I know, but I'm just saying that. No, I know it is, because you never, to me, you don't want to bind some future decision makers that you really don't even have authority over what they're going to decide.
Yeah.
So when you predict, you say, oh, this will be a second or third, those decision makers at
This will
that
be a
time
second
got
or
to
third.
decide that. So make that decision. I don't have.
Future phase as opposed to.
You know what I'm
second
saying?
phase.
It's tough to.
Yeah, so I'm just answering Mark's question
Yeah.
about what we might want to write a letter about, and then we'll work on the wording
Okay.
another
Well,
time.
the-
We're not going to work on the wording now live.
Yeah, I guess you did well capturing all the
I'm just trying to remember
conversations.
what we need to talk about.
Yeah. I think, so Dave's memo to us said regarding 20 Core Street, it was decided that we will wait on making any decision.
Right, and I think that we had a problem with.
Right, I think as a committee, we disagree with that, right? So our recommendation is that the town should
Yeah.
make a decision on what to do with 20 Core Street. And then however, we then begin to communicate that with this process, right?
Is there a time frame on that?
I think that's a good point. I mean, I would say that it should be done, I would love to have a decision.
Maybe that wasn't good wording I chose, because a decision will be made, but waiting is a day, an hour, 10.
No, it should be clarified about
Yeah.
what is that timeline. I mean, I think that to me, it's that as this gets communicated and a warrant article gets developed for the 16 million, is that a decision should be made with this process. I mean, I'm thinking out loud, that when this thing goes out to next spring, and I would hope the town does really well with communicating this project to the community, and what then the need again, is that at that point, it's communicated, this is what we want to do with 20 Court Street at the same time.
Yeah.
So however the timeline is, that I think that you have the data now, and whatever it takes for the select board to decide, just pick a path.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what else is needed for that. I mean, you have a study that was done. They looked at other options. This is what the recommendation is. You have two options. I'd say, what do you need to do?
And I'm not sure, and Julie, how much they, went into with you guys as far as and I'm sure they did with Little Valley talking about, single story versus two story, the efficiencies, the safety, and all these other things that were a lot of the things that they talked to us about of why you wanted to go in a certain direction, right? So in one of the original studies, they say, well, we to do a single-story fire station, right? Because that was one of their recommendations.
Yeah.
Was either feasible or not feasible on that site, right? It was because of the footprint.
Right.
So it's just knowing how building configurations affect operations. And yes, you can still do these things, but then there are no fire poles, right? So how do they get down from the second floor, just generally being considered of what renovation versus new structures, and this is my point, is that these are the most expensive people in our town.
Yeah.
They are at the most risk. They're the people that cost us on an operational basis all the time because of, someone gets injured, whether they get injured, out on a fire or somewhere else, and, their safety is important, and to keep them healthy is important.
I totally agree. I guess to me is that you have a report, and so, I mean, you have numbers out there now, right? We have. I don't know how you're going to pull back from not renovating with these numbers that you have in front of you, unless there's something that's been vetted that is, to Rob, your point about what's being shown and estimated is maybe it's not the right thing. But I think it's, now that this is out here and there's a $4 million renovation versus a $15, how are you gonna pull that back? I mean,
Right.
Who's gonna want to vote for a $15 million replacement when you have a $4 million renovation?
Nobody.
I mean, I think now that the town has this, I mean, I'm just talking about the politics, that I think that now that you have this out there, and I know that there's 4 million plus a lot of other options.
Yeah.
But they're there, so I think the town should come up and say, and that now that you have this document, is just to finish it and just say, renovation is this is what we'd want to do, and then replacement is this, and then pick a path. I mean,
Right.
just do it.
I mean, I'll go back to what,
I mean, why not? I mean, why say we're going to push it down and we're going to live in it, then we'll make a decision?
There might have been monetary considerations for that, I think.
I would.
And the beneficial, because I haven't heard anybody say, like some people that I've talked to, like that live-in period, no one's ever argued against why that's a bad idea, because you don't want that idea. You've articulated the benefit of knowing, and I understand that. But, everything has benefits and, pros and cons to everything. So what's the drawback? What's the con of allowing a live-in period?
I don't think it's needed.
I agree.
I don't think you need to live in the building that's half vacated to figure out if you want to be there or not. You've already said that this renovation option.
Not whether you want it to be there or not.
No, you've already said the renovation checks the boxes on all the program. It's the least expensive. Why would you not want to do that? I'm looking. I'm saying to the sense. So, Julie, why would you not want to do that? It's already been shown the fire department is okay with renovating it.
If that's been shown to me and it's a value, I know that you have reservations about it, that there is more to do than just moving walls around.
Yeah.
But I think if we, it's going to be asked, how many years is that going to last, right? So, how many years are we investing in, and what's the...
So and I go back to the facilities assessment, which we started out with, and this is what I've done a number of times. The building starts in 1979, and it's 2022. It has a lifespan.
Yeah.
Where is it in its lifespan? Is it
15 years ago?
Fairly level, or is it way down here?
Right.
And the reality is that to reinvest millions and millions of dollars into something without truly doing the work that's necessary to bring it, to revive it, to me, is all you're doing is wasting money by putting $4 million into a building that ultimately, in 5 years, you're going to say, yeah, you know what, we've got people that are unhealthy, we've got, other things going on, we had an injury because, XYZ, we hired somebody that we can't do anything with. What it does is that it doesn't give you the flexibility over the next 30 years.
Yeah, but so Rob, these are good points that I think that this study should have addressed with that renovation option. I think I think it's a little bit hard because and I only looked at it for 15 minutes before the meeting, but when the numbers get out there, right? I mean, Julie, you know better than all of us that this is now, when this gets published and it's out there, that it's going to be it's going to be a battle to be able to say that, well, you guys put this together and this is the cost, and so now why isn't that what it's going to cost, right? So maybe that's the recommendation, Rob, is that the committee we should recommend is that more work should be done on the renovation option for vetting, but still have the town just pick a path, just go for it. I mean, just do it. I mean, I wouldn't ask that you go and ask for money for it, but you just say, you communicate to the town, this is the path, this is the plan. First phase is the new building, second phase is whatever.
Renovating,
Whatever, but because I just don't know how you're gonna pull back from a renovation, unless it gets vetted more and we show that it's, okay, it's not a $4 million, it's a $9 million because we're really gonna have to do all this extra work. I don't know. So maybe does that make sense to you guys for the more work on this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it will go over better with the town. This is my personal opinion that if you share the transparency and you say this is the plan we want to do, it will be better accepted.
Yeah.
The first phase will be better. So I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, the question came up with the Parks and Rec building, buying 10 Hampton Road. What are we going to do with the one on Court Street?
Yeah.
And we don't have an answer yet because they still need to use it, and we don't know for how long. I have answers, and that we'll need some renovation to take whatever we do, or if we sell it.
I haven't read the CIP, but if it's really $750,000 to renovate that building, that's going to be an interesting public session.
Yes.
Just so you're aware, there's been some life cycle, how long is this going to last? They did provide that. It's not in these documents, but I have it in writing. I don't want to repeat because I don't remember
Right,
exactly. But LBA says this is going to be blank to blank years of life expectancy for the renovation, and then the new construction is expected to be X. So I'll get you that.
Yeah.
I think it's 15 to 20 on the renovation, or 10 to 15, one or the other.
Right.
It's so then it's a policy, that becomes a policy decision.
It is, but and that's part of what we're trying to do is be advisors.
Yeah.
And for our advisors is that we know we already have a building that the can has been kicked down the road long enough that you get you're pinned against the wall, right? Okay, well, we've got a building that doesn't work. We've got, all these things going on. We've got HVAC issues. We've got all these other things that are going on, and you're basically Band-Aiding it together. So
With what? What is the Band-Aid?
With the renovation.
The renovation.
Oh, you're saying the renovation is a Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, we have been Band-Aiding it for a number of years, right?
Okay.
So, and I go back to the presentation, the idea that there's not any room for the fire department folks to be able to do any kind of exercise or anything else within the facility. They don't have the facilities they need from the staying and residential side of things, as far as the accommodations for the staff. I listen to those things and say that ultimately, when I look at the plan, we're really not doing anything to address those things that we heard as part of those presentations.
I think I'd like to have the fire department, because I don't believe they agree with that.
I heard the fire chief present it.
Yes, but that was before all these floor plans for the renovations came out. That was
their wish
before
list.
the fire chief and LBA really worked hard on determining what the program and operationals will look like inside the existing building if it's renovated.
Right.
I mean, that was before that, so
Sure.
they didn't have this. I guess my saying is maybe we invite the fire department, I think you should dive into this a little more. I think, maybe I can invite the fire department because they did a lot of work with LBA here since those discussions.
And I guess part of what I understand is that for them, the decisions they're making decisions based upon the idea that say, okay, well, what can we live with? For them, they're not going to be here forever. So I'm talking about as a person that lives in the community and wants it to live beyond the current fire chief and the current group of people, and I want it to be able to be adaptable to as time goes on.
I don't know if they viewed it that way or not. I can't say. I think that underscores the importance of getting them in here and talking with them about that, because I don't know their state of mind as you're suggesting.
But their pressure is to get the number down.
No.
Their incentive and their pressure is to get the number down.
I was through this process, and I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe it's the opposite side to get it as high as possible either. I saw the case, the primary goal of the fire department was to work with LBA and the police department to get a product that fits them operationally and satisfies their needs, their programming needs, and their space needs in the future. That's what I saw. It wasn't about, we rarely talked about the numbers because they didn't do anything with this with numbers. It was after this was designed, then they provide estimates on what was designed.
Sure. So I wasn't a part of the meetings. I just know that during the programming phase, you go through a lot of these operational decisions, and you actually you go down and sit there and say, what are your needs? Okay, this is the need. I need to store 35 different apparatus. I got to do this and I've got to do that. I have to do this one in this room. That generated that original the program.
Right.
So what I would do is, if I was going to do a critical analysis, I'd take this right here, right? I'd break it back down to its program, and I'd compare it to the program that was developed as part of the initial phase. And then I'd say, okay, well, does it match the program? And then
that's what they did. They worked through it. That's what I saw happen.
Yeah.
I saw that work between LaValle and the fire department, and they went back and forth several times. They had hours and hours of meetings about together and figuring out space and decon meeting, and decon space and hot space and cold space and warm space and how they all work together and how it should be configured for their needs. When you do the programming in the beginning, some things have morphed over time because you gave more in-depth analysis to it. So there are some variations that you could probably say, hey, from the program, when we were first having the initial discussions, we thought we needed X, but now X can be,
Right. You've been asked, by the way, can you fit and can you operate within this existing facility?
Right.
That's what they were asked. So the reality is that the question to them is about, can you live with X? Oh yeah, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. Versus the question would be is, what is more optimal for you as to operate your facility?
Oh, we already know that answer. It's new. Optimal, but is everything always optimal? I don't know. I've never run into that. Everyone chooses the most optimal. There's other factors that come into play.
Sure. There are factors, but I'm saying is that so in an optimized scenario, that's a balance between the two. I'd see them meeting in the middle. Per I think what Mark was saying. So somewhere in the $9 million or $8 or $9 million, I could sit there and say, yeah, I could understand. That if you went and said there, say, this is a combination potentially addition renovation to an existing building in which you're taking a portion of the building and you build a new residential portion of the building and you eliminate another portion of the building, and you've got one new section, something else that optimizes the operation within the facility.
I think that what we're really starting to push is that more work needs to happen on the study, right? I think that you have the replacement with a new building is the easiest part of it, right? You start out with new, it's the renovation, and I was just looking at the numbers again. And Dave, all the alternates that you're talking about, so $4 million was the basic, and then it's $1.3 million to replace the MEPs for the right. So obviously we would want to do that, right? And so that's $5.3 million, and then there's the two-stop elevator is $380,000. So that you're already up to a $7 or $8 million project with things that you should really do if you're making this for the next 20 years. I feel like that and Rob, you made this comment, I think, a while ago about we spent a lot of money on this, we spent a good amount of money on this study. We should make sure that we get we finalize the study so that it's a document that doesn't have to be redone in a couple more years, right? So I think it's a good one for us to recommend to the town is maybe and I know it's not part of their scope right now with LBA, but maybe it's that we should ask them to really look at the renovation option, validate, flush it out, come up to a conclusion of what that option would be. Is it 4 million or 8 million?
Yeah, I don't think it's 4.
They have.
I don't think
What I'm saying is that you have a base and alternates. I think the town, not LBA, the town should come in and say, this renovation option would cost the town this. And
right.
say that option 1 renovation, we think that town is going to spend $8 million doing this. The replacement is this.
Yeah.
And then the town, the select board, I think should recommend is that you guys pick a path of what you want to do. And what do you need to make that decision? Is it more work by LBA? Is it for you guys to kick around a life cycle analysis and then come to it, and so that you can go to the town of Exeter residents and say, hey, these are the 2 options we looked at. We want to do this in a future date. First step is this new building, but we believe the renovation is the best for the town in 2028 of whatever. I think that would go over well with me, and I'd be like, hey, they got a plan.
Mike, I want to make sure this is clear, because in the beginning you said, I think where you were going with, the study's not done yet.
No.
We need some more.
No. Let me just clarify, Dave. I'm sorry. So I think the LBA's done their scope. I think the town of Exeter needs to make a decision, and my question is, what do you need to do to make that decision of coming up with a number, not just saying it's 4 plus 16 alternates, is to say the renovation option is this.
Well, yeah, they can do that. So we don't need any more. I'm following you right. The information is here to make that decision. They just have to make it.
The town of Exeter has to make, the select board have to make that. But if that's all here, and Joey, this is a question for you guys, if you have all the information, great. Then it should be even easier then, because then you don't have to go back to LBA and ask any more questions. But if you have it, then I would say just make a decision.
Unless for some reason there's something glaring about the renovation that needs to change that would alter the price significantly.
But I think that somebody should be looking at this and saying, like to Rob's point.
It could be in a range too. I don't think it has to be. You could sit there and say it's 7 to 10 million. Whatever.
Yeah. I would always use ranges.
Yes.
I would always, and I know that for the warrant articles you can't, but for this I definitely would.
No,
but
exactly.
But so Dave, I would say that. But my guess is that if the town really focused on this renovation option, that there should be questions like, hey, we just noticed stairs. Do we not need to have it be accessible for the full building? You know what I mean? That there may be something on that you would, before you say that, and I'm just guessing that the select board may have more questions if they really were pushed to pick an option. So, I mean, it just may be additional service to LBA is to maybe do a little bit more work, but.
I'm not sure what exactly the scope of that work is.
I think that needs to be determined by the select board.
Yeah, I think that the study that we do have that does have the costing out might be sufficient for us to make the decision. So just because, I can explain this is what it looks like, but there's hidden things that are going to happen in between. Then the question comes up, if we raise and build something new, where does the fire department go while that's going on in phases that happens? So that's going to be an additional cost that we just don't know. So the question will be, is this a short-term decision, binding, as Dave said, future select boards for whatever number of years we decide is the term, and then the next step or next phase is rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have to make this decision, but I guess you have to balance that is how do you going to make this first part successful?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that it's going to be more successful if the town has the whole picture and has a plan? And if you don't feel like that's necessary, which is what the decision is now, then that's, you guys can do it. I just feel like I would vote for it more.
If I knew
what the next phase was.
Yeah. But if you knew what the next phase was in the warrant article where we're raising funds.
I'm sorry. So I mean, I don't think that it has to. I don't think that for me to vote for the 15 million that you'd be asking for the next money for the next one. I don't think that. I think it's just knowing, okay, they know what they're doing next.
And that's been the stopping point for the select board, and why the town manager recommends it being 2 pieces, is because you don't want to sink the new station because we've added in the cost of whatever we do at 20 Court Street.
No, but I also don't think it's perfectly transparent and
No, I
genuine
understand.
to
Yeah.
not let people know there is going to have to be a fee too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I.
And part of the other thing.
But we have done that.
Right.
Because I guess transparency being thrown around, maybe, I
No,
know you're
see,
probably not.
Dave-
People could take it as you're saying we're not transparent.
No.
I don't see anything
No.
about this project that the town has not been.
No,
No,
what I'm-
I didn't. I'm
hold
gonna
on,
clarify
hold
what
on.
I will continue.
Hold on, hold on.
I just
No,
want to finish.
stop. Nope. You've said this a bunch of times, we've heard it. We're saying that very few people have watched our meetings, have come to the public sessions, very few people, whereas a lot of people are going to read the warrant article. So for transparency to go from beginning to end, we need it at the end too. It has been there all along, and we can't let it stop when we get to the end. Good?
That's what I wanted to hear.
Thank you.
I didn't-
That's why I stopped you.
Well, yeah,
All right.
I hadn't said that fully yet, but anyway.
That's fine. That's why we said it.
All right, so is,
Am I clear?
what next steps?
All right, so do
you
we
wanna-
still think that we can not now write this up with some wordsmithing? Because I don't feel confident in any of these notes or to come up with a,
I can take a pass, and I was just thinking it was gonna be a couple sentences, and I'll run it by you guys.
Yeah.
And copy Chris, and, I think it's, to me, is really, my opinion would be just focusing on, I'll type something up.
Yeah,
I'll just do it by
perfect.
email, and just be a
Yeah.
couple sentences, and then we can keep expanding it however it can.
Yeah, the next select board meeting is Monday, so you're not going to get it done by then, so
No.
you have a couple weeks, so.
No, I
just
think
don't
we're all on the
think
same page that.
Maybe
that
even another
We
one
want
of
to
these
continue the
meetings.
transparency that's happened,
Yes.
right? Continue it.
yes.
And make sure we're all trying to make this project successful. And then it's, it's just, there's gonna be two different, so many opinions of how to do that, whether it's you want to pick a path or not. I mean, that's, you guys make that decision. I just know how I would vote, and I know how other people might vote.
Yeah, and all we're doing is recommending, we think you should pick a path, and then you decide if you want to pick a path or not. All we're doing is writing a letter.
Yeah.
To me, this also helps with one of our other goals, which I know is also a goal of the advisory committee, the Budget Recommendations Advisory Committee, which is the idea of long-term capital planning.
Yeah.
So the notion that from a capital side of things is that we know in 2023, potentially you put, a bond would go out for $15 million, and in 2027, you'd have X, Y, Z, and it begins to help from that's part of what our original things was, is to try to help balance out this notion of when do you begin to be strategically looking at putting capital projects into the pipeline so that they actually even
Waste
out.
of money between
Yes.
the two.
Yeah, you even out, and as things retire, and this is what, as things retire, then you get, okay, well, now we have an opportunity to sit there and say, oh, we know we're going to have something retiring in 2029, and so let's look at trying to, balancing out those things so that from a tax standpoint, where else people aren't freaking out.
And that may
Exactly what
be
we
the-
strive to do with the capital improvement program, but
Right.
it's far from perfect, but we
Nope.
try, and a lot of times you can't estimate funding. That's the difficult.
Well, and-
How much
but
these things are gonna cost.
in Rob's,
But I hear you. That's
yeah,
what we strive for.
In Rob's picture, what I see is that we choose, let's say we choose the path to renovate. We get to the end of other bond, some bond, and then we can then choose whether we want to keep the renovation or move on to raise and rebuild.
Yeah, and it just, you can sit there and say, if you, from a planning standpoint, if you happen to have a positive tax year versus a negative tax year, or whatever it happens to be, instead of, it gives the ability to financially plan over a longer period of time. And that's why a lot of these facilities assessments are done, is so you can look at your infrastructure needs, your capital needs, your human needs, human capital, so that you can sit there and say, we have a 10-year outlook.
How much telework can we do?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, it's 4:30.
I make a motion, Vice Chair, we adjourn.
Are we?
Second.
All right, well.
Unless you have any other, you can say no.
No, it's fine. I just wasn't sure if we knew what our next step was,
I think Mark was going to take a stab at a draft.
and we'll just do it by email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing it now. I'll
Okay.
try to send it up tomorrow.
All right, perfect, great.
Wait, tomorrow's Saturday.
I will entertain your motion now. Rob,
I make the same motion I did 15 seconds ago.
sorry, okay.
Second.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.